Hey guys, this is the Overthinker and welcome to the channel. I'm going to be bringing you guys a video on every single team in the NFL. This is going to be kind of like a preseason hype slash off-season hype. We're not quite in the preseason, but I'm pretty sure by the time I'm done doing 32 of these videos, we will be in the preseason, because I'm probably going to make one of these videos maybe once every couple days or maybe once every day once we get closer to preseason, because I kind of want to finish somewhere around the start of preseason. I think that'd be ideal. And I'm a huge Lions fan, but I am also interested in all the other teams in the NFL. I've always watched other teams very closely, and I think there's a lot of stuff going on outside of just the Lions that is interesting to me, and that's why I kind of want to make these videos, just to maybe see what other fans are thinking, and kind of put my own spin on what I think about the upcoming season for every other team in the NFL. And yeah, I thought I would start with the worst divisions in the NFL. I think we're going to start with the Browns division. That's probably the worst division in the NFL, considering they got the Ravens, who aren't very good. Also, you have the Steelers, and the Steelers are definitely a good team because they make the playoffs almost every year. But then the Bengals, you know, they don't really do much. And the only other division I think comes close is probably the division with the Jets, the Patriots, the Dolphins, and the Bills, because three of those teams don't make the playoffs very often. But yeah, I decided to start in the AFC North where the Browns are. And I think that's probably the worst division, so that's how we're going to do it. And I think one of the interesting things about the Browns is the way they played last year. They were definitely a very competitive team, even though they didn't win a game. All of their games they lost were like basically one possession. And I remember watching them play the Steelers. The Steelers basically won on like the last drive of the game, and it was crazy. And it's like the rest of the season was basically like that. And I think I watched the Browns play maybe 3 or 4 times last year. They seem to be on TV more than they usually are, but they did play the Lions, obviously, and they were pretty competitive against the Lions until Deshaun Kaiser actually got hurt, and then they lost. But like, they were winning that game until Deshaun Kaiser got hurt, which is crazy. So yeah, I know definitely there are some Browns fans out there that do not want to see Hugh Jackson anymore around. I tend to think he's a pretty good coach, and I think there's a lot more he can do with this team if you give him a few more years. This team last year was just not very good, man. You got to look at that secondary. That secondary is one of the worst secondaries we've probably seen in a long time. I don't even know if I can name a starter on that team outside of Jabril Peppers, and yeah, that's definitely not a good when a guy that watches as much football as I do can't even name a starter in your secondary. That definitely means it's not very good. I definitely think that getting a guy like Tyrod Taylor is going to be very good for this team going forward. Tyrod Taylor has been in this league for quite a while, and he's always been the kind of guy who's never going to really force a pass into a bad window. He's definitely a very safe quarterback when it comes to throwing the ball. He's not going to make too many bad decisions, and I think overall that's kind of what you want for a team with a lot of weapons. As the Browns definitely have a lot of weapons right now. I mean, you look at their offense, you definitely have, I mean, obviously, if you look at that Browns offense right now, you have Josh Gordon, who may be a #1 receiver in this league going forward. You don't really know, but he did have a couple good games last year, and he did look pretty dang good. I mean, he was getting open a lot, and there were a lot of times when the quarterback just didn't have enough time, or they didn't even see him. So there's a good chance that Josh Gordon might actually return to form as that #1 receiver in the NFL next year, which is kind of crazy. There are a lot of good receivers in the NFL right now, but I think Josh Gordon is probably one of the more talented. And then obviously you have Jarvis Landry, who's one of the better slot receivers in the NFL over the past few years. There's some people that would say he's probably the best slot receiver outside of maybe a Julian Edelman. I would probably take Jarvis Landry over Julian Edelman, because Julian Edelman doesn't really have that high gear when it comes to speed. I think Jarvis Landry definitely has the ability to, you know, make a play into a 70-yard touchdown because of his speed. Julian Edelman is more of a guy that'll make you miss without that kind of elite speed. I think Jarvis Landry has a lot more speed than a guy like Julian Edelman, in my opinion. And from watching Jarvis Landry over the last few years, I definitely have seen him a lot on highlight videos, just making some ridiculous catches, especially the one-handed catches. It's kind of been like him and Odell Beckham, you know, this kind of like competition thing they got going on. And obviously Odell Beckham's better at catching those kind of passes, but I think Jarvis Landry is definitely very good in his own right. One of the better receivers in the NFL when it comes to catching the ball in traffic as well as going up and getting it. Even though he's not the tallest guy, he can make all those catches, and I think that's going to be very good considering you have a guy like Tyrod Taylor back there who's accurate enough, I think. And I think he's good enough to win you quite a few games this year. I mean, I know a lot of people are kind of joking, oh, will they get 1 or 2 games this year? I honestly think the Browns 6 or 7 games, because you look at the rest of your division. I mean, you're playing against the Bengals. I'm not really high on the Bengals this year because they had everything they needed last year and it just did not work, you know. So honestly, I'm not really thinking very high of the Bengals this year. I think with the Ravens, it's very interesting because you have obviously the new quarterback situation with Lamar Jackson and Joe Flacco. You don't really know who's going to start. I feel like either way that's not going to be good because I'm pretty sure, I mean, Lamar Jackson's going to probably come in and, you know, make a few big plays and make a few mistakes, and there's no way I could see the Ravens getting over like 7 wins next year just because there's a lot of room for error when you're bringing in a new quarterback like that and throwing him into a system. And if you look at the Ravens, they don't really even have a good receiving core, good running back situation, nothing like the Browns. And yeah, I definitely think that the way that Tyrod Taylor has been playing over the last few years, I think he could definitely possibly have a Pro Bowl type year this year. And I don't think that's kind of crazy. I think that's very realistic. If you're a Browns fan looking forward to this season, I think you got to be excited about Tyrod Taylor. I mean, here's a guy that can make all the throws, man. He's very mobile. He can make a lot of plays that other quarterbacks can't, and he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I think that's a very good thing for this team. I definitely think Tyrod Taylor is going to surprise a lot of people this year, and I definitely do not think they are going to bench Tyrod Taylor for Baker Mayfield this year. I think maybe next year they might think about it, but I think this year it's not going to be even close. Unless obviously there's some injuries, and then in that situation obviously you would have Baker Mayfield come in. And then looking at some of the other pickups, obviously they had Demarius Randall, who came from the Packers. Being a Lions fan, I've definitely watched him play quite a bit. Now to me, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy you want starting on the outside at corner. He's definitely, I would want him like as a depth guy or playing some slot or maybe safety. I definitely would not want him playing one-on-one with the other team's best receivers, just because from what I've seen in the past, he tends to struggle when the ball is thrown deep, sometimes locating the ball, sometimes being in the right position, period, especially in man coverage. But yeah, I think he's a good depth player. I just don't think he's probably the guy you want starting at corner, just my opinion. I mean, he has made some good plays for the Packers over the past couple years, but he's definitely had his fair share of bad plays over the past few years, which is probably why the Packers didn't want to keep him. But other than that, I think for the Browns, drafting Denzel Ward was probably the best decision to do, just because if you look at this team, their biggest need was really secondary. I mean, they do need pass rush, and they do need all these other things, and Bradley Chubb was there, but I really think going secondary is probably the better decision there, just because of how hard it is to get a good corner in this league. I think you probably just take the shot when he's there and hope he hits. Obviously, they took Justin Gilbert a few years ago, and he didn't pan out. But just because you draft a player and he doesn't pan out doesn't mean you should never draft that position again. If someone that looks like he's good is there and available, you gotta take that chance. You definitely gotta take that chance if it's gonna fill a need. And I think corner was one of the biggest needs on this team. Another thing I'm really interested to see is how this is going to play out with all of these running backs they have in this team. Honestly, I don't really think it's probably worth drafting any of these running backs in fantasy, because it's probably going to be the type of thing where like one running back has a huge game and then the next week another running back has a huge game, because I can't see a situation when any of these running backs will get over like 10 carries unless they're having an outstanding game. But yeah, I mean, I've always liked Carlos Hyde quite a bit. Very tough runner, has the ability to make people miss in the open field. Not the fastest, but has pretty good acceleration. And I'm actually pretty surprised the 49ers didn't want to keep him. But I know he did get a pretty decent contract, I think. So maybe that's why. And then also looking at Duke Johnson, I mean, I think he's one of the better receiving backs in the league. If you ask me, he's definitely pretty underrated, especially on like third down. This dude, I mean, he's basically like Theo Riddick, but faster. If you don't know, Theo Riddick on the Lions, pretty much that receiving back, kind of like a Darren Sproles kind of player, I suppose. But yeah, that's pretty much what Duke Johnson is. He's definitely a very fast player. Pretty much almost every time he turns the corner, he makes a huge play. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting now because now you add in Nick Chubb, who a couple years ago was pretty much going to win the Heisman until he hurt his knee and then missed the entire season. But I mean, he was insane a couple years ago in college. And yeah, a couple years ago in college, there were some people saying he might be better than Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley was insane in college. So, I mean, and I know Nick Chubb never fully returned to what he was as a freshman in college, but it seemed like towards the end of that last year, he was starting to play very well, especially in the playoffs. I mean, he had some really good runs, man. And it seemed like he was starting to get some of that speed back, which is interesting. Like, you know, because I thought with the ACL, they would always wait till you're like 100%, you know. But it looks like maybe he came back before he was 100%. And then, like, I don't know, it's almost like he started last year playing pretty well. And then towards the end of the season, he just started running faster, which is pretty interesting, obviously, with the ACL injury he had a few years ago. So yeah, I think there's a very good chance that Nick Chubb will be one of the better running backs out of this past draft class. I actually wanted the Lions to take him. He was probably my favorite prospect outside of the first round was Nick Chubb. Definitely wanted the Lions to take him, but he wasn't there when we picked. So yeah, I think definitely with the Browns, there's a lot of potential this year to have a pretty good season, but there's also a lot of potential to possibly not have a great season. But I think even worst case scenario, you're not going to only win 3 games with Tyrod Taylor starting the entire year. There's just no way. Tyrod Taylor's not as bad as some people are saying. He's way better than any quarterback the Browns have had in like probably 10 years. I mean, I don't know much about Browns football history, but I don't think they made the playoffs since like 2005 or 2006. So, I mean, Tyrod Taylor's a good quarterback, trust me. A lot of people in the NFL have been saying that for the past couple of years. He is a good enough quarterback to win you some games and get you in the playoffs even. And yeah, I guess that's it for this video. I really think the Browns should probably win at least 6 or 7 games this year, just based on what's going on with this team. I mean, you have a good enough quarterback, very good receiving core, 3 running backs that could probably start on a lot of teams in this league. And also with this young defense, I mean, you got Demarius Randall, now you got Denzel Ward, you also have Myles Garrett, you got Emmanuel Agba, you got so many guys in this team that have great potential. I mean, you got to be excited if you're a Browns fan. And I guess we'll see. But I definitely think at least 6 or 7 wins this year. And that's what I think, guys. This is going to be my stamp. This is going to be my thoughts on your team. Let me know what you think if you're a Browns fan. Let me know what you think if you're not a Browns fan, why I'm wrong or whatever. And if there's anything really important that you think I missed, go ahead and comment down below. But thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day.